I was born in Marikina, a shoemaking capital of the Philippines. My grandparents themselves come from like a shoemaking background. My parents met. They were both students at UE, but they didn't know each other at UE. They both ended up in the same workplace, and my mom was like, "Who is this guy?" and started going after my dad, which is not how I see my mom right now in life. But eventually, they started dating, they started courting. My dad's family started to move to the United States here in California, so he said, "I'll be back," to my mom, and this is like late 70s, early 80s. And my mom's mom, my grandmother, said, "No, he won't be back." But they wrote love letters, kept in touch across the Pacific, and eventually he came back. They got married. That was the first time their parents met. They were married, but he was still trying to make a home for us here in Los Angeles. So he came back to Los Angeles. They were married across the Pacific for multiple years. Eventually in 1988, I had a sister by that point. My mom, my sister, and me were ready to come to the United States, and we have been in LA since. I don't think my parents have always been very comfortable with me challenging rules and challenging laws. You know, we grew up in the Philippines in the 1980s, which means we remember what it's like being in underneath the Marcos regime. I know my dad has told me stories of his friends who got politically involved and were murdered for their beliefs and their activism. And so when we came here to the United States, I think a lot of the messaging we got was like, we're a conservative family, like don't do anything, just focus on your studies, be obedient, get a job, be safe. I feel like as soon as I got to the United States, we entered a world in which racism, you could tell, was alive here in Los Angeles. In 1992, the LA riots were happening, and the LA riots positioned Black people against Asian people, against white people. And it was very clear that race was really important here, and I couldn't ignore that, even though I was in the second grade at that time. And ever since then, I think I've really thought about how do we actually bridge these racial divides in the United States, so I've become an organizer, an educator. When I told them that I was going to run for office, I started just like planting seeds to see what they would thought. I think my dad immediately was very proud. He was just like, yes, absolutely, right? Like it is something to be really proud of to see that your child is getting involved in government and local politics. My mom was a mom. She was worried about the money, the finances, the legal obligations, my job, my security, what that meant for me. So it was months of conversations, sort of evolving their understanding of what this would mean. But by the time that I filed for office in April, they were super supportive. They've asked all of our friends and family and coworkers and colleagues for funds for our campaign, because we have to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to make this work. So they've been super supportive. I gave them their campaign T-shirts. They've been very proud since, and I'm seeing them grow to really be proud of me, even though there's still obviously a lot of anxieties involved with this kind of work. Really weird that I've discovered is, even though we have so many things to change, people are coming back to me saying, like, Godfrey, by doing this, you're still making history in so many ways. So, for example, as a Filipino person, I'd be the first person in Los Angeles to be Filipino and represent a part of Los Angeles in the Assembly. If elected, I would be the first person in Assembly history, that's 140 years of California Assembly history, to be both LGBTQ and an immigrant. We've never had someone who is actually both of those things represent any part of California before. So that's historic as well. And you know, because rent is such an important part of my platform and what we're fighting for, right now there's only one renter in the Assembly out of 80 people up there, and more than 25% are landlords, which means no one up there is incentivized to fight for people who have high rent to pay. And so I would just be the second renter in our Assembly, and most of our district, 85%, are renters. Who is fighting for us up there? We're so underrepresented. And then lastly, with a lot of my background in education, it's important to know that out of those 80 people, when you take a look at the education committees, only 2 people on each committee have ever worked in schools. So the people who are making policies about our schools have never actually worked within them and believe that they have the actual opinions to make laws on behalf of teachers and students. And that just doesn't seem like the most authentic way to actually represent our communities. Again, like, we've never had a Filipino assembly member from Los Angeles. I'm just trying to be the 3rd person in our entire state to make this happen in history. And so if that's something that you want to support, then that's something that hopefully you'd be able to contribute to. You can go to www.godfreyforassembly.com/donate. That's www.godfreyforassembly.com/donate.